Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Behm. I'm CIB's Program Director, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today to our series, CIB in Construction, in Conversation, with our CEO, Don Ward. I'm really happy that Don is here. CIB is the global network for research and innovation in buildings and construction. And for all of our viewers out there who are watching the recorded version or the live version, whether you're members of CIB or guests from around the world, I want to extend a very, very warm welcome, and I hope you will enjoy this conversation. And for more information on what CIB does and our global network, please see the website on the screen, cibworld.org. And this series of conversations that we have, CIB in Conversation, is all about meeting personalities behind leading research and the leading players throughout the world of the thought leaders in the world of built environment research. And after reading Don's CV, he has a really interesting background. I think he's going to share with us about how he's led some very interesting built environment organizations around the world and the wealth of experience that he brings here. So, Don, can you please start just by giving us a quick overview of your particular career and your expertise?
Love to, Mike, thanks. Yeah, I did a degree in physics at Bristol in the UK, and during my summer vacations, I was employed by Pilkington, the glass and insulation company, and also by the Central Electricity Generating Board. So I was kind of always into energy and buildings. And when I graduated, I went to the Building Research Establishment, BRE, which is the UK's Building Research Institute, at the time government owned, now privatized and owned by a charitable foundation. And I spent 10 years working on energy efficiency in buildings and developing and validating models for predicting the energy consumption of particularly housing, which led many years after my time into what's the standard assessment procedure for assessing energy consumption of housing in the UK. And then I was lucky enough to get seconded across to work with Sir Michael Behm after he wrote a key report that many of our viewers will know well, the Construction Team Report of '94. And I supported his work and particularly the implementation of his recommendations, and quite quickly became chief executive of the implementation body Construction Industry Board. And really from then on, since mid-90s, I've run bodies of that kind all the way through to joining CIB this year. And CIB is not that different, but the previous sort of 4 or 5 organizations were all on the same agenda, an agenda for change and improvement in the performance of the construction sector, mainly in the UK, but also overseas.
That's fascinating. So energy efficiency in housing. So you must be very conversant then in some of the green buildings and sustainability issues that are going on in the global built environment sector today.
Yeah. I mean, I was very focused on energy efficiency and energy performance, but things like Kyoto. I guess the world woke up to green buildings and sustainability in the early 90s. So certainly before I finished that sort of researchy part of my career, I was certainly more aware of the broader sustainability agenda. And I had a very small involvement in the development of the world's first environmental assessment method, which was BREEAM, which is the sort of the other leading assessment method compared with LEED that you'll know well from the USA. Yeah, it's sort of, I was never an expert. I've never claimed to be an expert. In fact, in general, I would never claim to be an expert in very much these days, but I have quite a broad knowledge of quite a wide range of topics in our sector.
So your background is in physics. That's also very interesting. Can you tell particularly our students and our early career researchers, just your passion for physics, or perhaps why you got involved with the physics when you were at that stage?
I think I was always very analytical, Michael, and as you know from our work together, I'm always looking at data. I'm always interested in charts and way of presenting data and statistics, and I think I got all of that from my education in physics. But Yeah, I was always fascinated in how the world works, but I was very much at the applied end of physics. So, I guess I could have done engineering as much as physics because I was interested to sort of understand how physics would apply to the real world, and then to find a job and a career which would do something that was useful, for want of a better phrase. I always used this idea that I wanted to be able to stop an individual in the street, tell them what I did, and they would say, "Oh, good, that's useful. I'm glad someone does that." So yeah, sort of in terms of detailed physics, quantum physics, and so on and so forth, kind of that wasn't my area. I was very much more at the applied end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It always amazes me the breadth and depth that folks come at the built environment. It's quite
Yes.
a broad and diverse field, and
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty.
I agree with you. It really is, and even more these days with with the sustainability agenda. Let's bring in the geographers. The social agenda and the impact of buildings on people. We need all the ologists, the psychologists, and the physiologists, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, and we see that in the breadth and depth of the commissions in the task groups within the CIB as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we really do. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, we're not necessarily here to talk in detail about CIB, but everything from the people side to the legal and contractual issues to the very technical, the original sort of foundation of CIB around some of the early digital applications, but also, just simply the developments in research and knowledge around the performance of materials like steel and concrete.
Yeah, and you've had a very diverse career as well in terms of some of your international travel and keynote presentations.
Yes. Yes.
Could you maybe tell the audience about one of your particular most interesting keynote presentations, or in a particular place that kind of stands out for you?
Well, where I got the taste for it was the first time I ever was asked to go overseas. It was actually very early in my career. The BRE was involved in work overseas, and we got invited to present at the UN Habitat Conference, which happened to be held in Harare. So my first venture overseas, other than to Northern Ireland, was to Zimbabwe to present on our work on evaluating the energy performance of housing, and what that might mean for the development of housing policy around the world. And because, of course, CIB being a United Nations linked organization, Habitat being a crucial United Nations linked organization, there'll be many of our viewers who know Habitat far better than I do, but I was just very struck by the backgrounds, by the vast numbers of people, but also the range of backgrounds, like we were saying earlier. But also the respect with which they held all the speakers. I was a very young researcher. I'm trying to remember what year it was, 90. I'd have been 4 or 5 years into my career, still an early career researcher. But people were kind enough to come up to me afterwards and thank me for the presentation and want to discuss it further. Yeah, it was great. And that is the power of the network. It's the power of conferences. Let's hope we can get back to the important aspects of these sorts of face-to-face conferences, because clearly with COVID-19, we've lost that operating model at the moment. But it would be for sure a great loss to the research community if you can't get together face-to-face in that way and develop the sort of less formal, more informal modes of communication and getting to know people that provides you.
Yeah, and you really bring a good point about you as an early career researcher. And so, what advice do you have for early career researchers and students, both, I guess, in the pandemic world in which we live, but also as we hopefully move out of the pandemic and hopefully get things back to a little bit of normalcy? Do you have any words of wisdom for the young folks out there who are just starting out and thinking about how can I make an impact, those types of things? Yeah.
Well, I think a couple of thoughts really. One is the sort of around the idea of empathy. I found myself over many stages of my career wondering why people thought that. Why were people thinking different to me? And I see empathy as the skill of putting yourself in other people's shoes. And if I was them, what would I be doing? What would I be saying? What would I want to achieve from this? And in my world of sort of trying to influence change, that's been a crucial skill of understanding why people maybe think differently, and maybe they quite like life as it is and don't want to change. So think about empathy and being in other people's shoes. There's someone not very far from here, Mike, who came up with a great one the other day, which was around always take advantage of every opportunity you get offered, always say yes. And my version of that was, the harder I practice, the luckier I get. You know, I was accused of being lucky at various times of my career. And I said, yeah, it's funny, you know, I've worked really hard to get that opportunity. Actually, you know, I kept my head down, I got on with it, I did a good job. And funnily enough, my career looked after itself, because people kept coming along, offering me new opportunities or new conferences to go and speak out in Harare, or, you know, whatever it might be. And eventually it led to a secondment to work with Sir Michael Behm, which was an amazing opportunity. So I think that's great. That's great advice as well. And you know, I've been surrounded by great people. And when I was working with Sir Michael, you know, the best tip I could ever give is just keep quiet. You know, you've got two of these and one of these. And I found myself using these more than twice as often, and just listening and soaking up all the conversation, all the knowledge around me, allowed me then to learn. I'm still learning today. Every time, every meeting I have, there's always something new happens. And I find myself able to sort of be like a sponge and hopefully replay some of that usefully for the benefit of other people further down the road.
You know, that's really great advice, Don. And I think, you know, as you were speaking, it kind of made me think about the challenges that we face in the pandemic world in terms of trying to collaborate and soak in those new ideas. And so,
Yes.
you know, do you think that these social media platforms are going to truly replace face-to-face conferences, or how do you see that unfolding in terms of the future, perhaps over the short term and over the long term?
It's a very interesting point. You use a great word there, collaboration, Mike. I've pushed collaboration in construction for the last 20 years, 25 years, and you know, it's really difficult. Actually, collaboration, which is the idea that your success is my success, and what can I do to help you be successful? How do we collaborate in that way to add value for each other? A lot of people misunderstand that term in so many ways. That a lot of it starts with respect, a little bit of what I said a minute ago, and a lot of the sort of aspects that one needs to develop, I think, really only come from face-to-face relationships, from seeing how people behave face-to-face. You know, you can't really see it now, but, you know, I've got certain characteristics and certain personal touches which you won't see even on this Zoom call, but which you'll like or you won't like, but they'll become identified with me and what you think about me, in a way in which Twitter or Zoom just won't give you. That said, what is great about Twitter and all these other channels is now there is much less premium on knowledge. There's now no real excuse for not being able to find reference to the latest report from the American government, or you know, what the Prime Minister of Finland has just said to his people about built environment. There is access to that data, made now very incredibly easy thanks to the web and all the apps that run on it. What it becomes the premium, therefore, is the skill of interpreting that data, that knowledge, and doing something with it, and turning it into intelligence, and turning intelligence into you know, action and change. And so you know, there's pros and cons of all social media. The networks are far bigger. Potential networks are bigger, but I think they're less thorough. I think they're less valuable. I think each relationship, if it's only a Twitter relationship or only a Zoom relationship, will be skin deep or less deep than if you and I had, you know, you and I have been working together for 6 months, Mike. We haven't even met in person yet, have we, because of the pandemic? I feel like I know you pretty well, but I know that if that 6 months had been spent together in the office, or even every month because we were traveling to the same conference or something, then I know we would be closer friends, and we would know so much more, and we would be more productive and collaborative, even more collaborative, if I might say that, than we currently are. So you know, fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. But I hope we're gonna, you know, hopefully we're gonna have to learn how to deal with these types of virus and how to work through them, and not lose that that networking, that face-to-face networking benefit that I know we both think is so crucial.
Yeah, yeah, I really do. I think, you know, as I reflect on some of the face-to-face interactions that I've had over my career, you know, those, now the technology really fosters those and extends those particular relationships, and getting back in touch with people every couple of years face-to-face.
Yes.
And then in the intermediary, this just really enhances those particular relationships and extends them, and then broadens that particular small network as well too. So it's interesting. You know, you in the early part of this conversation, Don, you mentioned the word empathy, and I
Yeah.
really like that word empathy, the concept of empathy. And I know I find myself, I'm always telling my students, you know, the journey is to be ethical and empathetic, and that's
Right.
really
Yeah.
what
Nice. Nice.
really that journey. You know, you can never claim to maybe be those things, but it's about your journey to become a better ethical decision maker, a more empathetic individual. So what advice, you know, is, you know, and I think from an, so, you know, this is a little bit selfish here, but from an educator standpoint, from, you know, a leader standpoint, how do you help others see empathy and become more empathetic on that path? Is it an experience, an age thing? Is there anything that a leader could, or a university, a professor could, you know, do or engage in to help others think about empathy, become more empathetic?
Wow, the joys of these conversations, Mike, is we don't share the script ahead of each other, and I wish we had shared that one, because you might have given me 5 minutes to think about it.
I'm asking you a hard question, you know,
Let me know.
Don. You know, no one said this was going to be easy. We really
God.
need to engage our global audience here. And
I mean, you know, be true to yourself. I hope that most of the time I've been, I can't quite remember the word, but I've been true to the beliefs I have, the values I have. So I'm not going to, contradict what I truly believe in. And I will speak up, if you like, for those beliefs and those values. And I think that's part of just being a ethical person, and sort of demonstrating that to others in turn, I think is partly allows them to feel a sort of level of empathy. You know, I said I've always made this point of wanting to understand, wanting to hear people, wanting to listen to people, listen to their ideas first, if you like. It becomes easier then to demonstrate this skill that, as I call it, of being able to think, put yourself in their shoes, and start to sort of see life from their perspective. I'm conscious I haven't got a good answer for that question, Mike. Sorry.
No, I think your advice is spot on and great, because it's a challenge. Those words are challenging, and these concepts are challenging, and so those conversations, just I think to let people think about that and reflect on that is, you know, I thought your answer was absolutely spot on. So what do you think the next big thing is in the built environment? What's the next big thing in terms of the research, or how you see things extending locally, globally?
We're in the middle of a pandemic. What's been good to see is that I think some parts of the world and some research angles had already developed the well-established agendas of health and safety into health, safety, and well-being, and mental well-being, and the mental well-being that we have amongst our workers in our workforce, and our designers and our engineers and so on and so forth is one part of that agenda. But the well-being of people in buildings and in built environment, and the extent to which we really understand and join up the evidence of good impact on well-being of aspects of built environment, be it color, quality of air, views of nature, etc., and the bad impacts of built environment. And do we really join that up in terms of what Americans would call evidence-based design? I first heard that term probably 20 years ago, and I turned around to an architect who I worked closely with at the time, a bloke called Richard Saxon, who one or two viewers may know. And I said, Richard, what other sort of design is there? You know, what, they're spoken like a true physicist, right? I said, what other design is there other than design based on evidence of what works and what doesn't? And it turns out there are plenty of other types of design, and some of them good. So what do I know? And you know, that's another good word for empathy, or another advice as well. You know, a little bit of humility never goes astray, and I've certainly never claimed to know everything about anything. But this area of evidence-based design, we then began to call it value. CIB by the sort of late noughties was running an entire work program called Revaluing Construction, and that was around some of this agenda of understanding where is the value in construction. The value in construction is in the use of what we design and build and operate from the point of view of the client and the end users. There is no industry unless people need to use this stuff to get on with their life or with their job, or to move from one place to another, or to generate electricity, or whatever it might be. It's all about that end user, and I don't think we join the whole end-to-end process of built environment, from its planning and design and funding through construction to operation, nearly as effectively as we should do. But this move towards well-being and the focus on well-being is undoubtedly a very helpful push, I think, in that direction.
Yeah, I think that's great advice as well too, and I really like that you took it back to the empathy. You know, it's that's a great conversation, I think. And so, you know, Don, you know, you've spent a large part of your career leading organizations, and so what was your biggest struggle in terms of leading one of these organizations? You know, let's say you know, you've spent almost 15 years or 15 years with constructing excellence. So maybe what was your biggest struggle, but what was your biggest achievement, you know, that you're most proud of?
I don't think I'm necessarily a natural leader. I'm not someone who wants to stand up on the podium and shout, you know, rah, rah, follow me. I'm more of a leader by example, in that I like to set out the standards which I'm looking for, the values which I'm looking for, the corporate goals that I believe we need to achieve, and then through my own example, encourage others to follow, to go that way too. So I had to work hardest on, for want of a better word, actually, what you might call the sort of public speaking aspect of leadership. Just there are times when you have to be a really good actor, and you might, and as you know, we all get frustrated from time to time. There are times when you got to bury that and just put across a positive vision of the future, no matter what it takes, no matter your mood, no matter your energy levels. There are times we just got to raise the game, that was a challenge for me, and always is. So that's what I work hardest on. The sort of people dimension. I'm a physicist, I'm a scientist, I'm data centric and whatever. So there are certainly plenty of people who are warmer than me, who are more touchy feely, or more sorry, don't misunderstand that phrase, or who are more people-centric, and that's not my angle. So there've been times when I've really needed to work on that. And in terms of the most success from that, without being specific about it, work on the people aspect will never be wasted. You know, you cannot spend too much time, and certainly as someone for whom it wasn't natural, you cannot spend enough time just thinking about people as individuals and human beings. and all the other things will fall into line if you can understand people's motivations and help them feel cared for. Then people will follow a good leader to the end of the world.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice and great reflection. And so we do have a question from the audience. So the question is from our own Debbie Gray, and she asks, when the pandemic lifts and travel restrictions are a little bit less stringent, where do you hope to travel to? And let's ask that question both professionally, but then also personally.
Hiya, Debbie, and thanks for that question. In terms of business, the place that I've spent less time pro rata to what you might expect is North America. So the opportunity to come and be based in Canada, in Ottawa, and to from there meet more of the United States industry is appealing at a professional level, I have to say. The priorities for CIB, of course, we're very keen to see far stronger growth in Asia, in the Middle East, where I've just spent my last 3 years, and in the Americas as a whole. But just being selfish about it, I just quite fancy getting around the United States a little bit and understanding the place better. And because I know there are many experts who I feel like I should have met over the years, would have benefited from, would have broadened my own knowledge and understanding and goals in our sector. But I simply didn't fall my way to get over there. And personally, I've still got places. I've been to something like 60 countries through personal and business travel, and probably about half of them were through business, which is great if you are lucky enough, and if the world still tolerates travel on that scale. It's always great to stay on after these conferences or these business trips and get to see a little bit of the local country. But relatively close to home, I've never been to Rome, Prague, Vienna, and these are all great cities of Europe, really historical cities of Europe, which would be on every American's list, Mike, if you came and did a road trip around Europe. And yet, here am I, less than 1,000 miles from a couple of those, and I've managed somehow to miss out.
I think we all.
If that helps Debbie think about future conference venues, then feel free to include them.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we always kind of miss what's closest to us sometimes.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's easy to take for granted what's on your doorstep, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you have two tour guides here who will help you get around.
Thank you. Yes, I look forward to that. Yes.
So we can have some great coffee conversations on these road trips that we'll take too.
Yes.
So how about you, Don? Personally, in terms of your growth over the next 5 years, where do you kind of see some things that you're doing differently?
Well, this will come as a surprise to one or two of our student viewers, but about a year ago, I started thinking seriously about doing a PhD, Mike. And so I still hope that once we've settled down in this role with CIB, and once we can sort of feel stable again, I mean that personally, through the virus as much as anything else, then I hope I can get back to that PhD, which obviously would be a 3-4 year commitment. I've been talking to Peter McDermott, who you know well at Salford University in the UK, who's offered to supervise, and I've got 1 or 2 other guys around the world who very kindly offered to support, including our president, Keith Hampson, because the area of work that I want to look at, that I'm interested in, is the whole area of industry improvement initiatives, or what Giorgio Fori termed international development boards, and he carried out his work for many years in that sort of area. And I think there's a CIB group which might not be that active at the moment, but which has also looked in this sort of area. And because that's what I've spent most of my career in, I quite like to capture what I think I've learned, validate it obviously against other models and all the previous existing work, which I wish I'd known about at the time. Blimey, could have made so much more of a difference if I'd successfully found what I've now found in my literature searches, you know. But anyway, if I start to feel comfortable again and maybe get myself settled in Ottawa, then I hope I will be able to make the time to complete that PhD, which has kind of been an aspiration for the last 10 years. But with this change of role, I hope I've created just enough space to start to be able to conclude the beginning of that project. Let's put it like that. Yeah,
I think that's great, Don. I think, and Debbie prompted me on that in the questions from the audience. So I'm glad you went down that road, because I think it is inspiring for all of our audience in terms of, you know, looking at someone like yourself who's led organizations around the world, but you're still on a journey of lifelong learning, and you're still learning things, and you're also reflecting. You know, you talked about, oh, I wish I would have known this back in the day. And so I think that, you know, that I think goes to, you know, the empathy, the humility, the lifelong learning journey that, you know, hopefully our global audience really truly appreciates in their own particular lives. So you know, as we're kind of finishing up here, Don, this has been a great chat. I really think it has been inspiring for a lot of folks. And yeah, no, it's really interesting, you know, from your point of physics and going into the broader built environment, and then getting into some leadership positions, the international travel, and now kind of capping this off with, you know, this PhD and kind of looking at things differently. So yeah, it's just a great, it's a truly nice story. And so you know, we like to finish these chats, Don, by saying, you know, what if you kind of had the ear of a leading politician, leading a policy maker around the world, what would be that one or two things that you'd really like them to know and remember about your experiences, the built environment research, or you know, the impact that you could perhaps influence them on?
Well, it would be around this agenda that CIB called Revaluing Construction, and what Ofori worked on in terms of international initiatives to improve construction. And that is, first of all, that you know, you cannot understate the value of built environment to the development of a country or an economy. And great schools deliver great education, great hospitals facilitate great healthcare, great housing develops great quality of life, and great transport systems, and so on and so forth. So, you know, in order to get that message across about the importance of the best quality built environment we can afford, I think is important. And the second aspect of that is, let's make sure we can afford a lot more of it by investing in the productivity and efficiency and improvement of the construction process and all the actors within that process. I'm absolutely of the school that believes there is huge inefficiency in our processes and every aspect of our processes. I believe that the final message for the politicians would be that as a client, and in most parts of the world, the government would be the biggest single customer, if you can call them a single customer. They'd be the biggest client for the construction sector. Guys, for heaven's sake, procure intelligently, understand our industry better, understand that the way you buy our services and our products influences the way we can deliver them. And if we can't deliver them well, and often we are constrained from being able to deliver them to the best of our ability by the way in which we've been procured, or for as a trivial example, because there isn't enough money in the job because it's been procured on some arbitrary lowest price basis, rather than thinking about the whole life performance, and therefore the whole life value, and therefore the whole life cost of the built environment facility that we're talking about. If you've done that, you have put too much of a straitjacket around the industry, and they will revert to very commercial behaviors, very uncollaborative behaviors, which are not focused on delivering the best building we can have, but are focused on protecting their own commercial position. And I think there is a very poor understanding of that within our client base, and the governments around the world have shown how much you can do. there is just so much more to go at in terms of the efficiency of delivery. So the prize is great built environment, which facilitates great quality of life, great natural environment, and great quality of life. Great built environment, great environmental sustainability, great social sustainability and social well-being. But you don't get it unless you set out to procure it, and you procure it intelligently. And that includes making sure that you procure a collaborative, integrated construction process, and therefore a collaborative, integrated design and construction team to do it. And I still find myself absolutely exasperated how often that is not what our clients do, and it's not how our industry puts forward an offer in response to the client need. And that's still the area that we need to change drastically. So that's coming from 25 years, Mike, of working particularly in that sort of area of the sector. There are many, many other crucial agenda, which I'm delighted that our working commissions and task groups are working on, and I certainly commit my best efforts to support all our task groups, all our themes, all our working commissions, because I think they can all make an impact, and because we all, at the end of the day, the best, broadest agenda there is in our industry and in our world is the UN development goals, the Sustainable Development Goals. And when you look at those goals, almost every single one of them is either directly about our sector or indirectly is influenced by our sector. And if you want a goal, which is to protect, save our planet and develop our planet and enhance our planet, and those goals are the best description of that agenda as a whole, then focus on that, because that is a career that is worth having and is valuable and inspirational for anybody, whatever stage of our careers that we are at. I hope that maybe is helpful.
I think that's extremely helpful. I think it's a great answer for the policymakers and the politicians around the world, but I also think it's an inspiring answer for each of the audience members as they think about their own particular expertise and how they might impact that larger statement, that really large, grand challenge that you really present, that we all need to be working for a little bit at a time and really trying to contribute to. I think it's an absolutely great macro answer, but it's also an inspiring micro answer for each of us to kind of operationalize within our own expertise. Well, Don, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm sure the audience has enjoyed hearing from you, hearing about your career, hearing about some of the inspiring stories and thoughts that you had for us today. We do appreciate your time and your effort in being here and supporting us at CIB. To our audience, for more information on this event, our guest work, and details of other events in the series, please see our website, cibworld.org, and our other communications such as our monthly newsletter. As a reminder, CIB is the global network for research and innovation in building and construction. And we hope you have enjoyed this session. For non-members, please have a look at our website for more information about what we do, how you can tap in to the particular working commissions that we have and the task groups to see how we can work together to add value for global research within the built environment. And finally, we always encourage feedback and suggestions to be sent to us at any time. So if you have thoughts on this event, the format, further questions, or future events that you would like to see us host, please do let us know, and please contact at any time. With that, I'm Mike Behm, and I'm signing off for CIB in Conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I like the sign off. That's good. Yeah, that's really,